Hi and welcome to another Watch Geek video. Today I'll be doing a tutorial for the module 5612 that's in this GA140 analog digital G-Shock. Now, just like with all my other tutorials, in the description you will find a table of content with time codes so you can jump to specific parts of the video or functions of the watch. However, I would advise you to watch the whole video the first time just so you get acquainted with all the functions that this watch has. And right off the bat, the first thing that I'm going to show you is how to check and correct the position of the hands, because that is something you will have to do whenever you change the battery. On analog digital G-Shocks, you always set up the digital screens and then the hands get set up based on that. Once you change the battery, the watch resets itself, thinking that the hands are pointing at 12 or midnight. So unless you change the battery exactly at midnight, they're gonna get misaligned. So to check and correct them, you have to be in the home screen. And you're gonna recognize the home screen by having the day of the week displayed here and the running seconds here. In the upper screen, you can either have the calendar data, month and date, or if you press this lower button, you can have the time. Now, to know whether the hands are misaligned or not, when you set up the home screen and you set up the time here, 1942 or 7 p.m. and 42, this time has to correspond to the time shown with the hands. If it doesn't, it means that the hands are misaligned. And this small subdial here has to be at 0, like this. Not straight down, but like this, the way it's now. Now, if your hands are not showing, so if these hands don't match the screen here, and if this hand points anywhere else other than here in the home screen, you're gonna have to correct the hands. To correct the hands while in the home screen, you press and hold the lower button for about 5 seconds until you have the H set written on the screen. So press and hold, and there. Now you have the H set, meaning that you're setting up the hands. The first hand that's going to get set up is the subdial hand, and as you can see it says sub. Now this hand can only move forward with the lower button. So if it was pointing anywhere else, you would just keep pressing this until it gets like this, pointing straight upwards. I'm not going to do it because it takes a lot of presses to make it go back, and since I can't go reverse with it, I'll just leave it like this because this is okay. Once you've set up the subdial hand, you simply press the mode button to toggle to the next one. And now this screen is going to write 00, meaning 0 hours, 0 minutes, or midnight. And now you have to wait for the watch to spin the hands to the position of midnight. If they stop anywhere else, again, you would correct them by using these two buttons, moving them clockwise and counterclockwise until you align them like this at midnight. Since these can get moved in both directions, I'm just gonna do it. Now these are connected, so to move the hour hand, you have to make a full rotation of the minute hand, like this. You can also do this where they move rapidly by pressing and holding the button, and once they start moving, they're going to keep moving until you stop them by pressing any of these two buttons. So now we want to stop them at midnight, like so. Let's correct it a bit, and that's it. When you have both of these hands pointing at midnight in the hand setting screen, that means that you just realign them the way they're supposed to be. To exit the hand setting mode and to go back to the home screen, you simply press the adjust button, like so. And now the hands are going to jump back to their correct positions. Once you've done this step after you just changed your battery, now you're ready to set up the time and calendar data for the watch. Now we'll just wait for the hands to spin back to their position, and then we're going to proceed with the manual setup of the time. There. And now, like I said, remember, you just set up the digital time and the hands move accordingly. So to set up the time, you have to be in the home screen and you press and hold the adjust button for more than 3 seconds. So press and hold. And there. Now the first thing that the watch is going to ask you is what your home city is. And you move with these two buttons forwards and backwards. So you can go due east or you can go due west. It is very important to set up the home city correctly because all the times in the world time function are calculated based on your home city. So if you mess this thing up, you're going to mess up the world time function as well. Since I'm in the time zone of Berlin or Paris, we're going to leave it like this. To move to the next setting screen, you simply press the mode button. and the watch is going to ask you for the DST or daylight savings time. This is the summertime. If you're currently observing, or if your time zone is observing summertime, you will simply turn it on. Since currently we're not observing it, we're going to turn it back off. And this is going to change the hours, move it by one up or one down. So when you're changing between winter and summertime, this is all you do. You don't manually change the hours, but just turn the DST on or off. Pressing the mode button again, the watch is going to ask you whether you want the 12 or 24-hour display. So whether you want the hours to be displayed in military time like this 19 or AM PM indicator. You're going to have this little P when you have the PM. I prefer the 24-hour display, so we're just going to toggle it back, and you toggle it with the lower right button. Pressing the mode button again, the watch is going to ask you for the seconds. Now, if you reset the seconds now, between 30 and 59, they're going to jump back to 0, but the minutes are going to move by 1 up to 47. However, if you reset the seconds between 0 and 29, they're going to jump back to 0, but the minutes are going to stay unchanged. So if I reset them now, and again you do it with the lower button, they're going to jump back to 0, but the minutes are going to stay unchanged. Pressing the mode button again, the watch is asking you for the hours, and now you can go up, you can go down, and you can even speed scroll if you press and hold the button. So let's go back to 19, like so. Pressing the mode button again, the watch is going to ask you for the minutes. Again, you can go up, you can go down, and you can even speed scroll by pressing and holding, like so. Okay, pressing the mode button again, the watch is going to ask you for the year. Again, the same thing. With these two buttons, you can go up, you can go down. Pressing the mode button again, the watch asks you for the month, up, down, and pressing it again, it's going to ask you for the date, up and down. The watch is not going to ask you for the day of the week because it calculates it based on the year, month, and date that you input. So if your watch is not displaying the correct day of the week, it means you messed up one of these three. Now, pressing the mode button again, the watch is going to ask you how long you want the light to be turned on. If you leave it like this at LT3, it's going to stay on for 3 seconds. If you toggle it with the lower button to LT1, it's going to stay on for 1.5 seconds. So it can be 3 or 1.5. Pressing the mode button again, the watch cycles back to the selection of the home city. And that's it. So if you want to change anything else, or if you messed up some of the settings, simply pressing the mode button is going to cycle through the whole setting up mode. Once you've set up everything the way you want to exit the settings mode and go back to the home screen, again you press the adjust button, like so, and the hands are going to align to the correct time displayed on the digital screen. And that's pretty much it. You just set up the watch. Now, while in the home screen, pressing this lower button like I showed you is going to toggle what this screen displays. So currently it's displaying the home time, the same time displayed with the hands. Pressing it, it's going to display the calendar data, the date and month. This screen here is always going to display the day of the week and the seconds. Pressing this button right here is going to activate the light, as you can see it. Pressing and holding is going to activate the auto light. So press and hold. And once this screen here, this little square disappears, you just activated the auto light. What that means is that if you put the watch level and tilt it to your face, it's going to activate the light like this. Now, since this is a regular battery operated G-Shock and it doesn't know when it's in the dark, this is going to keep doing it all day long. So to save the battery, it's going to automatically disable this function after 6 hours. You can naturally disable it manually by pressing and holding the light button again for more than 3 seconds. There, until this indicator disappears. And that's pretty much it. Pressing this doesn't do anything, but pressing and holding, like I said, gets into the setting mode, and pressing and holding this is going to get you to the hand setting mode that I showed the first. Pressing the mode button is going to cycle through different modes until you go back to the home screen. And that's pretty much it when it comes to the home screen. The first function that we're going to cover is the stopwatch. And this watch comes with 1/1000th of a second stopwatch that can measure up to 100 hours. You also have the option to have it as a split or a lap time stopwatch. And to change between the two, you press the adjust button while the stopwatch is not running. So the lap stopwatch is simply going to reset the stopwatch every time when you press the lap or reset button. While the split stopwatch is just going to freeze the screen, but the stopwatch is going to keep running in the background. So now I'm going to show you how it works. So with a split stopwatch, pressing the lower button is going to start the measurement. Pressing it again is going to stop the measurement, and pressing the reset button is going to reset the stopwatch. To read the split times, you press the lower button to start the stopwatch, and pressing the upper button is going to freeze the screen while the stopwatch keeps running in the background. Now, to unfreeze the screen, you again press the reset button. And now to stop the stopwatch, you press this button again. And to reset it, you press the reset button again. So that's pretty much it. Now the lap stopwatch does the same thing, but the stopwatch doesn't keep running in the background from the time where you stopped it, but it keeps resetting itself. So if I start the stopwatch and let it run for, let's say, 5 seconds, and after 5 seconds press this button and then let it run for like 3 seconds, it's not going to be 8 seconds, but it's going to be 3 seconds. So now it's running for 12 seconds. I pressed the reset button. If I press it again, you will see that the time has reset because we just had a lap of 4 seconds. And over here, the watch is going to write you the number of the lap, the current lap observed, and its time. Now the problem with this stopwatch and why I think it's useless is because this watch doesn't have lap memory. So you can only see the last lap displayed here, and as soon as you press the reset button again, it's going to show you the next lap, but it's going to completely forget the other one. So unless you're writing it down on a piece of paper, the lap stopwatch on this is pretty useless. Just like the regular stopwatch, you stop it with this, with the lower button, and you reset it with the upper button, with the reset. Now, this watch, like I said at the beginning, also has the ability to calculate the average speed based on the distance that you input in it. Now, the display of the speed is going to be used by using this display right here, digital one, and this analog. Now, the digital one, if you look closely, is going to have these little blocks, and each one of these blocks is 100. So this lowest one is 100. The one above it is 200. This triangle is 300. The next triangle is 400. Then we have 5 and 6. And over here we have 700, 800, 900, and this last is 1000 as indicated here. The tens are displayed here, the tens and ones with this sub-dial. Now to input the distance while the stopwatch is not running, you simply press and hold the adjust button. And once the watch enters the distance input, you can now input the distance forwards and backwards with these two buttons. Now it can go to 99. So if I go back, it's going to be 0 and 99. And pressing the mode button again, it's going to ask you for the tens. So now you can put it 9. So this can be input to 99.9 units. Now I say units because the watch doesn't care if they're miles, kilometers, centimeters, whatever. The watch is just going to calculate the speed of units per hour. So if you input your distance and if you measured your distance in miles, you would input that number and the result will be miles per hour. If you take that same distance, but you measure it in kilometers, you would input that number and the speed calculated would be kilometers per hour. It is up to you to know what unit you used to measure the distance between A and B. And the watch is just going to calculate units per hour. I say this because a lot of people ask me on my GA100 video, how does the watch know whether it's miles or kilometers? It doesn't because it doesn't need to know. You need to know because you're the one who's inputting the distance. Okay, now we're going to put it, and because you can do 99.9, you can do any distance you want by simply multiplying by 10 or 100 or 1000. Now we're going to put it to 1 so I can show you how to read the speed because it's going to be pretty easy when we have it at 1. So let's press the mode to go back to here and 1. So this, let's say, is going to be 1 kilometer per hour. 1 kilometer. The distance of 1 kilometer. To exit the adjusting, you press the adjust button and now we're ready. Now if I do 1 kilometer in, let's say, a minute, the speed displayed is going to be 60 kilometers per hour. If I do that same kilometer in 30 seconds, the speed displayed should be 120 kilometers per hour. If I do that same distance, that same kilometer in 15 seconds, the speed will double to 240. So let's do a 15-second measurement to see if the watch is really going to show you 240 kilometers per hour. Now I'm going to try to stop it as close as I can to 15 seconds, but sometimes I can miss it by a few seconds. So 14, 15. There. Now as you can see, these two squares just turned off, so it's 100, 200, and 39 because I missed 15 seconds by 0.3 of a second. So now it's 239 kilometers per hour for this mile. Now if I restart it and stop it at 30 seconds, the watch should display 120 kilometers per hour. So now let's just try and stop it at 30 seconds. 24, 25, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30. There. Now as you can see, only one of these dots is turned on, so this is now 0. I mean, this is not 0, this is 120, 110, 120 kilometers per hour. So the speed calculation is pretty accurate. Now let's start it again. And now we're going to try to stop it at 60 or at 1 full minute. Because if we do 1 mile in 60 seconds or in 1 minute, that equals to 60 kilometers per hour. I mean 1 kilometer, not 1 mile. So this is going to be 60 kilometers per hour if we stop it at 60 exactly or at 1 minute. So these should be at 0 and this one should display 60. So let's try to stop it and see what happens. 58, 59, 0. There. As you can see, these are all turned off, so this is now 0, and over here we're exactly at 60 because that is where the red and the black meet. Now the one thing I forgot is if you do, because the watch can display the speeds up to 1,999 kilometers or miles per hour. If you exceed that speed, this little needle is going to go to over. So if we have that same 1 mile input, but we do it in like point something of a second. So if I just start and stop right now, right away, if we do 1 mile in 0.4 of a second, that's going to be a speed that exceeds 1,999 kilometers per hour. And now the needle is going to show over because the watch cannot display that speed. It says the speed is over the maximum capacity it can display. Well, that's pretty much it. Pressing the adjust button again is going to reset the stopwatch. This little hand is going to go to 0. And that's it when it comes to the stopwatch. So now let's move on to the next function. The next function is the countdown timer. This watch comes with a 24-hour countdown timer settable down to the minute, and it also has the ability of auto repeat, meaning that once it gets back to 0, it can restart itself. It can restart by itself. Now like this is now a 24-hour countdown timer that's going to run one time and stop and beep. To start it, you simply press the start-stop button, and once it reaches 0, it's going to beep and stop. You can also stop it, and you can reset it back to the time written in memory by pressing the reset button. You can actually adjust it to any time between 1 minute and 24 hours by pressing and holding the reset button or the adjust button. And now the watch is gonna first ask you what hours you want the countdown timer to be set for. And you can move up, you can move down. Pressing the mode button, the watch is gonna ask you for the minutes. Again, you can go down and you can go up. So now let's say we've set up this countdown timer to 1 hour and 5 minutes. Pressing the mode button again, the watch is going to ask you whether you want this to be a one-time countdown timer, meaning that after 1 hour and 5 minutes it stops, or if you toggle it with the lower button, it can be an auto repeat timer, where it's going to just restart itself automatically. Now this is one of the most useful functions because you can use it for medication and for interval training, meaning that the watch will beep every time when it reaches 0 and gonna restart itself automatically. So I personally find the auto repeat countdown timer is one of the most useful functions on a G-Shock. So now once you've set up the countdown timer, you press the adjust button to exit the adjusting screen and you're ready. To start it, you press again the lower button, and the watch is going to start counting down from 1 hour and 5 minutes. Once it reaches 0, it's going to start beeping, and it's going to automatically reset itself and restart the timer until you stop it manually by pressing this button and then resetting it back to the memory. And that's it when it comes to the countdown timer. The next function is the world time. Now in this watch has about 48, I believe, cities and 29 time zones, plus UTC. To toggle between the time zones, you press the lower button, and sadly you can only go in one direction, due east. Now while in the world time function, or any function, the hands are gonna keep displaying the home city time, while in the world time function, you're gonna have the world time city displayed here, the running seconds here, and this is the time of that world time function, of that world city. Now, the cool thing that this watch has is the ability to swap between the home and the world time city. So, like I said, let's move due east by pressing this button. Like, as you can see, it can go only one way. So let's say we choose, I don't know, Kabul. And once you travel to Kabul and land there, you don't want to read Kabul time on this small screen because that's not practical. You want to be able to read it with the main hands, and but you still want to keep track of your home city by having that on this small display. You don't have to manually change your home time and then go back into the world time and select your... No, all you have to do is press these two buttons simultaneously and the two are going to swap. So press, and now we have the Berlin time, which is our home time, displayed on the digital screen, while these hands are going to jump to display the Kabul time, or the time of our destination. Once we're at our destination and we travel back to, let's say, to Berlin, to our home, we simply repeat the process and the two are going to swap again. So like I said, this is one of the most useful functions when it comes to frequent travelers or people that change two time zones all the time, because it's very simple, very fast, and very practical. Another thing that you can do in the world time function is turn the DST for each individual time zone on or off, the DST or summertime. To do so, once you select the time zone, and it works for all time zones except UTC, because UTC doesn't have DST, once you've selected the time zone, you simply press and hold the adjust button for more than a couple of seconds. It's going to change the DST and it's going to change the time accordingly. So it now turned the DST on for Kabul and moved the hour by 1 up to midnight. To turn off the DST for each individual time zone, again you press and hold the adjust button. It's going to turn off the DST and return back the time by 1 hour backwards. And that's pretty much it when it comes to the world time. Okay, moving on. The next function is the alarm. This watch comes with 5 alarms, with one being a snooze. To toggle between these alarms, you use the lower right button. So now currently we're viewing alarm 1, we can see that it's turned off, and we can see that it was set up for midnight. Let's move on. Alarm 2, again turned off, set up for midnight. Alarm 3, 4, SNZ is the snooze alarm. Again, it's turned off, and it's set up for midnight. To turn any of these alarms on or off, you simply press this adjust button. Once you've turned on the SNZ or the snooze alarm, it's going to say on, and you're going to have both of these indicators light up, the SNZ and the alarm. Whenever you have any of the alarms turned on, you're going to have this indicator turned on. When you have the snooze alarm turned on, you're going to have the SNZ turned on. Now, the last thing that you can do in the alarm is the hourly chime or the SIG. As you can see, it's currently turned off. If we turn it on with this, you're going to have this displayed right here saying that SIG is currently turned on. SIG is the hourly chime, where the watch beeps every full hour. Let's just turn it off like so. Now, naturally, you can turn any of these alarms, not turn on, but set them up to any desired time. And no matter even if the alarm is turned off, as soon as you start adjusting it, it's going to turn itself automatically on. So to turn on, let's say, the alarm 2, and to adjust it to the desired time, you press the adjust button and hold it. And now the watch is going to ask you for the hours, just like with the countdown timer. And now moving up and down, you can move to the desired time. So let's say like this. Pressing the mode button, the watch is going to ask you for the minutes. And again, you can go up and down. So let's say we put it like this. And to exit the adjusting of the alarm, you press the adjust button again. And now, as you can see, this alarm has been turned on for 22:10, so 10 p.m. and 10 minutes, and you can see that it has been automatically turned on because we tried to adjust it. Now, this is a daily alarm that's going to repeat itself every day. Once it beeps, it's going to beep for, I believe, 10 seconds, and it's going to turn itself off, or if you press any of the buttons, it's also going to turn itself off. You can naturally turn it off manually by pressing this, and now it's no longer going to beep. Now, if we go to the SNZ alarm and turn that on, and let's say it's been set up for midnight, this thing is going to beep every day at midnight. But even if you turn it off by pressing one of the buttons, or if you let it beep for full 10 seconds, it's going to repeat itself every 10 minutes until you actually go into the alarm like this and into the SNZ alarm like this and turn it off with this adjust button until the display says the SNZ is off. Otherwise, you're going to have the watch repeating the alarm all the time. Anyways, that's it when it comes to the alarm. So pressing the mode button again, the watch jumps back to the home screen. Well, that's it when it comes to the tutorial for this. I hope I explained everything and I hope you find it helpful and useful. If you do, please like and subscribe. And until the next video, bye.